Hey, friend, welcome back to the Everyday Boss podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Jane, and the founder of the Fempreneur Collective. And I'm super excited because today I have my business partner and business bestie and real life bestie, Charissa here today. I'm super excited. She's with us.
Hello.
Amazing. All right, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Charissa. She is a business growth strategist, financial coach, real estate broker, and a published author. Charissa Turnbull is a multifaceted entrepreneur, business strategist, financial expert, and real estate broker with over a decade of experience helping individuals and businesses build financial security, scalable revenue streams, and sustainable success. As the co-founder, with me, of Enchanted Prosperity, she specializes in business automation, passive income strategies, and financial coaching, helping entrepreneurs and women in business create freedom-driven businesses that work for them, not the other way around. Welcome to the podcast, Charissa. I'm so excited to dive in. Before we started recording, I was like, this is just going to be like a regular conversation we would have about what we do. And we get to pull back the curtain a little bit and kind of show people the stuff that we talk about and we address in Enchanted Prosperity and our membership in Chantria, and just dive into visibility and growth and being consistent in our businesses and actual practical ways that we can level up as entrepreneurs.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the whole idea behind Enchantria was that we saw this hole of, people needing systems, but they also just needed some serious direction, right?
Yeah.
They didn't need just the strategy, but they needed the tactical application of that strategy.
Yeah. There's a million places you can go to that will be like, do these things for 90 days and blah, blah, blah. But if it's not personalized, if it's not directed to your business and your particular strengths and weaknesses, it's not going to be successful. And it also tends to stay very theoretical and not actually yes, you need to do this one specific thing for 90 days, but there's also this list of 15 other things that don't take a lot of time, but still need to be done every single day as you show up as a boss in your business.
For sure. And I think honestly, the biggest challenge that I think people have, especially people who are pivoting into entrepreneurship or are relatively early on in their entrepreneurial journey, is there's really two things. And it's the first one is that they don't understand that being an entrepreneur is a skill set in and of itself.
Yep.
And you have to actually learn what that is. And so it's one thing to read a book that says, reach out to 5 people or, do these 5 things. But what usually happens is they don't know how to do those things. And so they then get caught into overwhelm, right? And so then they avoid. And then when they avoid, they tend to get stuck in busy work as opposed to needle moving tasks, which is why, they will see a little bit of income here and there, but it really prevents them from scaling and reaching 6 figures consistently. And then the second, I would say most common issue for everyone else, once you're kind of past that early bird baby entrepreneur stage, is that people think they have an audience, but they don't. They think that because they're connected with a bunch of people online, or they happen to know a lot of people, they think that they have an audience. And that's simply not true. Your audience needs to be a collection of people who are part of your business world, not just random people that you know.
Yeah.
Or are too.
Having 1,000 Facebook friends does not an audience make. It's just not, that's not the thing. So, we talk a lot about in Enchantria and in the content and the stuff that we put out about strategic ways to be more visible and strategic ways to actually get consistent revenue, right? Everyone talks about, 6-figure businesses. Oh, you should be making 6 figures in your business. First of all, they're usually lying because that 100K that they said they make, they didn't take home. It's not a six-figure take home pay. It's they made $100,000 in their business and spent $60,000 to run their business. And we really believe that if you have the right strategies and foundations in place, you can pay yourself that 6 figures while still effectively running your business and taking care of the technical constraints and the actual support we need in our business. You should be paying yourself 6 figures, not just making 6 figures in your business. And to do that effectively, you have to have systems, you have to have the right foundation, you have to have the right strategy, and you have to be in front of the right people. So, I mean, that's a lot to unpack, but pick one of those and unpack it as you are so good at doing.
Well, let's like if we're going to talk about visibility, I mean, then the key factor is always your ideal client,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's one thing to be visible, but if you're not visible in front of the right people, then it doesn't matter, right? If you're selling, you know, tampons or whatever, you don't want to do that in Maxim magazine. That's from it.
It's probably not your ideal target audience. Yeah, good call.
And it doesn't matter how many people read that magazine, you're not going to get any sales. And so it is a lot about understanding who your ideal client is, but then understanding positioning as it relates back to their primary desire. And I talk about this a lot, especially to our clients, that it's not good enough to know that you want to serve female entrepreneurs. It's not good enough to know that you want to serve people that are on a health journey. And it's not good enough to know that you want to serve, introverts that want to, learn to get out of their shell, right? You have to know specific things about them. And I hate the word avatar, and we talk about this all the time. Wow.
Yeah, we do. We do.
Sorry. It's not an avatar because this is not like some fake profile that you're
Yeah.
creating of a person that doesn't actually exist. It's somebody that has to exist in real life, not just some ethereal person. And initially, we can start out with some basic things, right? Like, what's a term that they identify with? Okay, well, female entrepreneur. Okay, how can we qualify that? Well, maybe they're high achieving, maybe they're impact driven, maybe they're health conscious, maybe they're moms. It doesn't matter, but you want some sort of qualification that's more detailed that kind of narrows it down. But then beyond that, like you need to know things about your ideal client. And the biggest thing you need to know is what it is that they want. You need to understand their primary desire, because if you don't, you're never going to be able to identify the pivot point. And the pivot point is the catalyst point at which they choose to make a buying decision. They choose to seek out a solution that you, in theory, have the answer to. And you don't really understand that primary desire, then you're never really going to understand your ideal client. And a lot of people build their businesses, especially build their offers around what it is that they want to teach. And that's fine. I'm not saying that you need to teach something that's outside of your zone of genius, but you need to know how to position your zone of genius directly to the primary desire of your ideal client, or you will never sell anything.
Yeah. Because it doesn't matter if you're shouting to, if you're like, oh, I help female entrepreneurs, and you're shouting about helping female entrepreneurs, but what, how, when, where, why, like all of those things are so important to understanding who the right female entrepreneur you should be talking to is. And I like your point around like, yeah, you can absolutely lean into a passion point or something that you're really good at as like what you're selling and what you're positioning your business to be. But it can't just be, I'm really good at this thing, and so I want to like teach people how to do it. They have to want to know how to do it. They have to have a reason and a purpose behind learning to do that thing. So you need to know what that reason and that purpose is, so you can speak the right words to them that are going to make them be like, oh, Jennifer and Charissa, JJ and Charissa, like they know their shit. We need to get in their world, and we need to get in their world with money, right? Because it's not enough to have them just sign up for your email list. That's great. It's a good place to start. But they have to actually be real world people with real world money ready to solve their real world problems for it to be something that you can bank on and start creating consistent revenue around. If you don't know those things, you're kind of doing what I call spray and pray. And we're all guilty of it at different stages in business. But what solves that spray and pray problem is clarity and actual understanding of facts.
Absolutely. And I think this leads me to the conversation around, like a deeper understanding of your audience, right? And understanding that all the people that you know and all the people that you're connected to and all the people that they know and are connected to is your sphere of influence, right? Inside your sphere of influence is your audience, right? And that's everybody who wants to interact with you on a professional level. And then that is actually interacting with you on a professional level, I should say.
Right.
Until 1,000 Facebook friends does not an audience make. But within your audience is going to be your ideal client.
Mm-hmm.
But then within your ideal client, there's going to be your ideal client that's actually ready to buy.
Yeah.
And those are the people that you're going to be making offers to. Because just because somebody's your ideal client does not mean that they are ready for whatever that it is that you have to offer, right? Like people have to be in the pivot point. They have to be in the catalyst of being prepared to make the change. And part of being ready to buy is somebody who has money. You have to make money in your business or it is not a business. We can all talk about ease and flow and that money is not a motivator and all that stuff. And honestly, most people that talk about that aren't making any money.
Yeah.
And I get it. I get wanting to be impact driven. I do. I'm a very impact driven person. And quite frankly, I'm actually not money motivated. But it is not a business if we're not making money.
Yeah. And let me tell you, it is so much easier to have a sales conversation and you don't feel like you're being salesy if you already know that they're a qualified person, right? Like they're already qualified to be in your program. You're pretty sure that money is not going to be too much of an objection and you actually can solve the problem that they're coming to you with, right? I'm not someone who's like, oh, I love sales. In fact, you might find me saying, oh, sales, ugh, that's why Charissa exists. Like she's the salesperson in what we do. But I can sell no problem to someone who I know needs what I have and is in a position to actually make a decision, informed decision, and start implementing. It doesn't feel like a sales conversation to me when I know they're qualified and I know that they probably have money to put behind it, right? I don't have to convince them of anything. I literally just have to tell them how we can help them and what the impact of that will be. And then it's like kind of a no-brainer. And that's the kind of energy and effort you should be spending on conversations. Those are the people that don't require you to like hard sell and do 14 follow-ups on. You literally like, here's the link to buy, and they buy 10 minutes later.
Yeah, and keep in mind, like, we don't want to make assumptions about our audience, right? Like, we don't want to assume that somebody does have money because we don't know other people's financial situation.
Yeah.
And that being said, that well, and honestly, we don't know that what people will do to be able to pay for something that they really want and they really need.
Sure.
Now, the biggest way to make sure that like by the time you get on a sales call with someone that they aren't that it's not going to be a money objection is you need to make sure all of your pricing is available and online and that if they research you, they can easily find how much they're going to have to pay.
Yeah.
And then if they still book a sales call, then it's safe to say that they know how much you charge and
Yeah.
that's just not even a thing.
Yeah. And there's no like sticker shock or pricing objections to overcome in the conversation. If anything,
It will be, but it won't be the real objection, right?
yeah. Yeah. Because money so often is oh, I don't know that I can afford it, right? Like that's an easy out because people can't like, some people will, but most entrepreneurs won't push hard against that. Oh, you don't have the money. I'm so sorry, right? Like, let's wrap up this conversation and move on with our day because we want to talk to people who have money and are willing to spend it. Yeah, no, I think that's such a key point. Like, and we'll come back to the making the right offer to the right people at the right time in their journey and making it easy and transparent, right? Like that, those four things make sales conversations no-brainers. They're not even sales conversations. They're really more onboarding conversations at that point.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I think everybody who's an Enchanteria right now, is because we only soft launched it, right? Like we didn't actually market it. Everybody in Enchanteria so far has been somebody who's been like, okay, I want to work with you. Like, what's the best capacity for me to do that? And some of them are just in Enchantria, some of them are in Enchantria plus one-on-one, some of them are in Enchantria plus some done for you services. But at the end of the day, they were all people that we didn't have to set, right? Like we were having a conversation with them and they're like, oh yeah, okay, just tell me what to buy.
Yeah. And you're talking to the right person at the right time when you tell them what you do in any capacity, in any niche, and any expertise. When you're having a conversation, they're like, oh, what do you do? And you say, I do this. And like you see the little flare, like the little moment of like, ooh, oh, tell me more, right? You can identify that when you're paying attention. And that's when you know that this is someone that you need to explore a deeper relationship with, right? Fostering that relationship, getting to know them, making sure that they're checking, the who, what, when, where, and money to spend boxes that allow you to move from somebody that I kind of just sort of know or was introduced to into actual program participant who is not only getting their needs met, but is like ready to rave and refer the hell out of you.
Exactly, exactly. I think, building a business based on referrals is amazing. I mean, that's how I built my real estate career. And I still get referrals, now from clients that, I helped 10 years ago and, that I haven't talked to in 6 years, right? Uh, so I had a couple of months ago, I actually had two complete strangers refer me to the same person.
Wow. That's awesome. Your networking and your relationship building is like on point when that happens.
Now
100%.
you're one on the same path.
That's even more magical. Well, that means that person had a good network, that they were right, like they had a good network, and then also you had a good network. Um, so let me ask you this: what is like, because the goal of every episode of this podcast is for there to be something like actionable and tangible to take away that for our listeners to like go implement in their business if it's something that they're struggling with. So, what is one thing every entrepreneur or woman in business should be doing to increase their visibility, like on a daily basis? What should they be doing?
The number one thing that you can do to increase your visibility is know how you prefer to be visible.
Okay. Tell us more.
So if you don't enjoy social media, you probably shouldn't force yourself to be on social media because you're always going to resist it. If you don't enjoy networking, you shouldn't try to force yourself to do networking because you're never going to show up fully and in your best capacity. So find the one way that you like to be visible, that you feel like you thrive, and go 100% in on that before you pick something else.
And then get really consistent with that thing, get really honed in, pay attention to your metrics and your data, make intentional and informed choices on how to get even better at that one thing. I like this. I like this. Oh, I use the analogy for so many things, but of baking a cake, right? Charissa laughs because A, I love analogies, and B, I always come back to cake because cake is delightful. But in order to build like a giant stacked, massive, beautiful layered wedding cake, that first layer has got to be on point, right? It's got to be solid. And you got to frost it and make it delicious and put on like, the chocolate ganache before you stack the next layer on. So that first layer and every layer after it has to be perfect before you layer it up further, right? So getting that one thing that you love being visible in, whether it's Instagram or in-person networking or podcasting, or if it's YouTube, whatever the thing is that you really love, and that's the thing that you're going to go all in on it, become the best at that one thing. Learn everything you can about it, build out your structures and your workflows, and find opportunities to automate where you can on that one thing, right? And there's so much technology now that is supportive of building automations and workflows and, ease and flow. We talk about it. It doesn't really mean a whole lot of anything until you have some systems in place, but it's an important part of how we do business. It should become easy for you to be visible in that one thing before you try layering on that next cake layer, right? Before you put that next layer of cake and frosting and fanciness anywhere. that first one needs to be solid and ready to go.
When I first became an entrepreneur, I read this book called Sell with Soul. Okay, it's a real estate book. And basically it's this female real estate agent that essentially is calling all the BS about traditional real estate marketing. Saying that, I'm gonna door. It's not even safe for women. Like, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to spend $10,000 to farm, which for those of you who don't know, when you're a real estate agent, they tell you to send these postcards out like a million times to these neighborhoods. And then, or like, open houses and things like that, where people who try to build their real estate careers on those spend a significant amount of money to do so. And she's basically like, this is stupid. Um, and it's manipulative. And I would rather spend my time, she's an introvert, and she says, I would rather spend my time being the best at what I do, being the best at being a real estate agent, and then taking people to lunch. And just knowing that, and that's how I'm not going to announce that I'm now a real estate agent because that's weird. And I'm not going to do all of this other stuff because that's weird. I'm just going to start talking about it and being excited about it because I already am. And I'm going to just take my friends to lunch because that will help them, remind them, and keep me top of mind. And that's how I built my real estate career. I took people to lunch. And it was a lot cheaper than farming or any of that other weird crap. But it also allowed me to thrive because I'm very good one-on-one and I'm especially really good face-to-face. I'm very shy. A lot of people who know me really well think that's funny, but I'm actually very, very shy if I don't know you very well. So trying to be in big groups and big networking type of events is very challenging for me. So it took me a long time to be comfortable. That was a skill I had to learn. And I needed to make money before I learned that skill set. So I read this book and I'm like, that seems easy. I can take people to lunch, right? So I did. And I increased my business by 25% every single year for my first 5 years in business. And I made my first sale within 6 weeks of being licensed. I closed it, which means that I met my first client within 2 weeks of being in real estate. And most real estate agents back then, social media and stuff makes it a little bit ambiguous statistically now, but back then it was an average of 10 to 14 months before your first sale as a real estate agent. And I
Wow.
made my first one and I closed it in 6 weeks. And it was because I had a relationship and I took this lender that I met to lunch and he had a deal for me.
Yeah, that's amazing. And when we can capitalize on the relationships we already have in some capacity, whether as referral partners or like, hey, I'm doing this thing, I'm really fucking excited and I want your support, right? You're my friend, you're my coworker, whatever. Who do you know that could use what I do, right? Who can you introduce me to? Making those asks allow us to get a jump start sometimes when
Sure.
we're at the beginning
It's like,
stage.
I've never really even made that kind of ask. And I know you're supposed to. I get it. Like, the who do you know that wants to buy or sell real estate is like the number of sentence that they teach you in real estate school. But it never came naturally to me. I've never asked for the sale. I never had to because people just ask me questions about things that I know. And being the expert has been the key to my success in everything that I've done. You can't ask me a question that I probably don't know the answer to if I'm advertising that I'm good at it because I'm going to make sure that I'm the best. The other interesting thing about my career is I got my license when I was in my 20s. So I was pretty young. I have a baby face as well. So I've always looked even younger than I am. And I never once had anybody ask me how long I've been in business, not even one time in my entire career.
They didn't
Even
need
when
to because it
I
was
was
evident. Yeah, it was evident from your expertise. Now, in the previous episode, which was the very first episode, I talked a little bit about like my entrepreneurial journey and talked about how I went from, newbie in Texas to blogger in VA, like kind of overnight. And I grew the social media management agency from just like part-time VA work on my side to 6 figures in 2017. And a part of that was me asking for referrals, right? Like I was asking current clients who were very happy and very satisfied if they knew anyone. So for me, learning how to like actually market myself as a consultant and a coach outside of the agency was very challenging because I grew to six figures just by telling people to talk about me, right? Like just being like, hey, you love me. Who do you know that could also use me and would love me? And hitting those, it was really easy for me to grow to that because I just be like, I got more capacity. Who do you know? Right. So I hit six figures by asking for referrals. But when I switched gears into coaching and consulting and moved away from running the agency, I had to learn how to like show up as an expert and be like and position myself as an expert and attraction marketing versus like referral based marketing. And that was a whole different world and took me a couple of hot minutes to figure out. So when we make pivots in our business and we're like either approaching things from a very different perspective or we're changing things up and serving differently, there are things we're going to have to learn that feel really uncomfortable. So how do you approach that? Like, how do you approach becoming the expert at something that you're like, holy shit, I didn't know I needed to be an expert in this thing, but here we go. Let's fucking do it.
So, part of my real estate career, and I talk about that a lot because that was my first journey into entrepreneurship. But because I was so young when I got my license, it was pretty common for me to meet people that were in my own circle or in my same age range, sometimes even younger, that they really wanted to buy a house. And keep in mind, like this was when the market was still very much a buyer's market because of the crash and stuff. So people like wanted to figure their finances out to be able to buy while it was still affordable. And most of these people were not financially prepared to be able to buy a house because they didn't even know what the requirements were. Most of them, had trashed their credit in their early 20s and trying to like dig themselves out or whatever. And so money has always come really easy to me. It's not just like managing money, but like understanding how people's emotions dictate the way they spend and save them. And so as a result, it made me be very empathetic, but also like be very able to help these people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I went through the motions and I got a few certifications. I'm a credit expert and all of these things. But it just kind of became my signature that I helped people who needed to fix their finances to be able to buy a house. And it came so naturally. But I had a similar experience to you when in 2019, I decided that I wanted to become a financial coach. And I had all of this expertise, right? I had been practicing that for, a long time at that point. And then I had also had my own personal financial journey, out of debt and buying my first house and all of that kind of stuff. Um, but it was interesting because the financial knowledge just came naturally when I was helping people in the context of real estate.
Right.
But I was extremely intimidated to show up as a financial expert, like if that was going to be my thing. And it took a minute. And honestly, like that's also where my journey into paying for coaching started because I realized that I had, some mindset issues around how I was owning my expertise. And it took me also a couple of hot minutes to recognize that whether I was using this expertise in the context of helping people prepare to buy a house or helping people to get out of debt just because they wanted to, didn't matter. Like it was the same expertise, right?
Yeah.
And I was allowed to get paid for that expertise. It was an interesting journey. And I think for me, it just became important for me to talk to other people about it, right? Like to be able to talk about why I was excited about what I was doing and like why financial coaching was so important to me and like really talk about my origin story and true prosperity and how it became about and like how I'm also, I'm a passive income expert, like a passive revenue stream expert, and I want to teach other people how to do that because if you can create passive income, then you can create financial stability, right? Like no matter where you're starting. And it just really became this deep desire to talk about it, even if I wasn't getting paid. And
Hmm.
then as a result, like I became recognized as the expert in my immediate circle. And then they were sending people to me, right? And then I'm being guests other places and things like that. And that's similar how, Enchanted Prosperity started, right? Like it was really started out as this, idea that I had to create passive revenue streams and then it turned into this like whole other thing. But the same thing, like I talked about it and how excited I was about it. Um until other people recognize me as the expert. And I'm not saying that, needing external validation is always a good thing. But if you are struggling, just allow yourself to be recognized
Yeah.
as an expert and it will make you feel better.
So yes, so much yes, because it's so easy for us to like downplay our own wisdom, our own expertise, our own experience. And I did this for decades, right? Like I still struggle with it a little bit to be like, yeah, I am an expert in AI. I am an amazing brand strategist. And to really like own the positive descriptor words that so many people put in front of that, like, oh, because people will be like, oh, you got to meet Jennifer. She's incredible with AI. Like you absolutely have to talk to her about AI and workflows and on automations in your business. People describe me that way. People describe you similarly in your zones of genius because we're fucking awesome at it, but we don't take ownership of the fucking awesome part because society told us we're not supposed to be proud about things we do. And so there is some mindset work that is required as entrepreneurs to unpack some of that need to downplay our brilliance, which is a whole other conversation that we should probably schedule for some time in the not too distant future, because I think it'd be a good one. But like really owning that expertise and then standing in it confidently, right? Things shifted for me and my capacity to be like, yeah, actually, I am an AI expert. Like 6 months ago, when someone I admire was like, oh, you have to talk to Jennifer. She's an expert in AI. And I'm like, well, if that person can call me an expert, then why the hell am I not calling myself an expert?
Yeah, for sure. I think for me too, like one of the things that I realized really early in my entrepreneurial career is that I needed to understand what made me feel safe to take action. And for me, it's knowledge. So, like, if I wanted to do an open house, like, I would schedule the open house and then I would spend that entire week learning everything that I could about open houses. And if I would, like, when I booked my first showing appointment, I spent 3 days, like, learning everything that I could about, how to show property, right? And like I talked to my mom, who's my business partner in real estate, and she was my mentor, about everything that I could, that could go wrong, right? And then sure enough, I don't think it was my very first showing, but it might have been my first buyer showing, 'cause my first showing was a rental, but I dropped the key through the deck hole and it was like guarded, like it was enclosed, like a deck, so you couldn't get access to the bottom of the deck. In it. And the homeowner was out of town, and the agent didn't have an extra key.
Oh my gosh.
It's one of those things where I had to learn a very interesting lesson that, you can prepare and prepare and prepare, but you also have to be able to go with the flow. But at the end of the day, like I have continued that same trend. I know knowledge makes me feel safe. I know knowledge makes me feel confident.
Yep.
So if I'm not feeling confident or I'm not feeling safe, it's because I feel like there's a knowledge gap and I figure out what that knowledge gap is and fill it.
Yeah. And you are very good at that. And I'm, as your business partner, I am incredibly grateful for that being a thing that helps you feel safe, because it makes my life easier. Because I'll just be like, hey, Charissa, which is absolutely a brilliant part of being in a partnership, which leads me to, this part of the conversation that I love having around collaborations, because a big part of what we do in the Fempreneur Collective is find collaboration opportunities. And in an episode that's coming up with Bonnie, we talk about partnerships, and you and I are business partners, but I would really like to talk not so much partnership, but like the collaborations in your business journey that have helped you get to the next level, right? So who have you collaborated with, or like those collaboration moments that were really pivotal to your growth? Let's talk about that.
I mean, I think first learned about collaboration as an entrepreneur when I made some strategic referral partnerships with some lenders and some other similar industries with my real estate career that we could exchange referrals. And in fact, like I'm still connected with most of those lenders and insurance agents and all of that stuff. Even the lender that gave my very first deal. But one of the insurance agents that I still refer to is actually in Enchantria. Um, so it's one of those things like when you truly like make those connections, they should last ongoing. But when I became a financial coach, it was a little bit different because it was hard for me to, I wanted to collaborate with real estate agents because I felt like I had something that I could offer them, that would increase their clothing, right? Because I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, if you get a lead that, isn't qualified, like send them to me and I am happy to help them and then send them back to you. But that was really hard for me because all of my real estate connections were local. I was now I'm pretty well known in this area as a local real estate agent. And so I had all kinds of, feelings around people thinking that I was going to poach their clients. So I didn't immediately go after real estate connections when I became a financial coach, even though I knew that would be, a really great path. So instead, I started building my business online. And most of the collaborations that I made were actually life coaches. And the the interesting thing about um my financial coaching program called Journey to Prosperity Isle is that it's really about like being in control of your own financial journey and the fact that you get to choose. And then I'm not going to tell you how to spend your money. I'm going to help you make the right decisions. So it took me a while to figure it out, but it really did make sense to pair with specifically with life coaches,
Mm-hmm.
and mindset coaches that didn't happen to specialize in money because they were already working with people who are looking to shift. And so much of your financial journey really does have to be about making shifts, especially financial shifts. And then when I was writing my first book, I was about halfway done with it when a friend of mine who is a publisher reached out and said, can I publish your book instead of you publishing it self-published? So that was also like another great collaboration that I ended up having with her. Then she ended up publishing my second journal. And I still have a great relationship with her as well. And then we've actually become referral partners in a lot of ways. And then, honestly, like a lot of the people that I've done like some of my full scale coaching programs with, have been great collaborations. That's obviously how I met you.
Yep.
I'm great, I'm great friends. And honestly, some of our clients are even from some of the other programs that I've done. I've done a lot of collaborations. I did a collaboration, last year, maybe it was 2 years ago, honestly, with someone that they were focusing on the human design element. And I was designing some mindset modules around overcoming fear. Because overcoming fear is one of my expertise that comes from helping people with money. And we designed this entire program specifically uh, for corporate leaders who are looking to identify opportunities to grow and help their team. And part of that is going to be overcoming their own mindset issues to make sure that they're not, basically projecting
Yeah.
those things onto their team. And so that was a really fun collaboration that I did. So I really enjoy working in tandem with other people.
Yeah. For me, collaborations have been the number one way I've grown my business. And also just how I've built relationships that have directly impacted how I grow my business and have been the thing, right, for me consistently over time. So much so that I actually built the Fempreneur Collective as a way to spotlight and make it easier for other entrepreneurs to find really good collaborations. And we've seen some really epic shit come out of that space, which makes me so excited. So before we wrap up, this is going to be like my standard question for most people. The last question is, what's one thing about you that most people don't know? I want you to try to surprise me because I know a lot about you.
Surprise you. Played roller derby. Did you know that?
I don't think maybe you've mentioned it in passing, but like, it doesn't surprise me that that's something you would have done. Because you're a badass in so many ways, but like, I don't think like I knew that you played roller derby.
Yeah. So I honestly though, I mean, like generally speaking, you already know this about me, but I feel like what surprised the most people when they meet me, is that I am an introvert because I have a very learned behavior that if you don't know me very well, I know very.
Yeah. Yeah. That I know about you very well. Yeah. But I mean, we've been friends for 6+ years. So, when I did share my story in the previous episode, I did talk about our great 2020 game of bathroom roulette as we drove across the country together, which was so much fun. It was quite the adventure, and it will live forever in infamy, because it was one hell of a season of life for the whole world as a collective, and me in particular. But I mean, you can't really. Most people don't have a road trip story from 2020, let alone across the country.
I had not just a road trip story from 2020, but I was also in Europe in March of 2020.
That's right. I forgot. We weren't sure how you were going to get home. We didn't know if you were going to be able to. I forgot about that. The other thing we did in 2020 that was pretty epic that most people will never be able to claim was we went to the World Series in Arlington, Texas, because Texas was kind of like ignoring the rules. And there was 5,000 people at the Arlington baseball stadium. And it wasn't even the Texas Rangers playing in the World Series, but we got to go to game 1 of the World Series in October of 2020, which was pretty freaking cool. And it was the first time we met in person. Yeah. So we have a few together pictures, but not many. And we're going to have to rectify that someday soon. But Charissa, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. I'm super grateful for your friendship and your trust in me and your partnership. And I'm super grateful for you sharing your wisdom today. So thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
All right. On our next episode, I'm talking with the incredible Jen. She is a hypnosis and mindset expert, and we're diving deep into your subconscious, and it's going to be a good one. So stay tuned. In the meantime, go build your empire.